5 months after we broke up, I ran into Peter in the maternity ward. I was in a baggy maternity dress, my hair a mess. He was in a tailored suit, standing next to his beautiful, polished fiancée. "Peter, do you know her?" the woman asked, tugging on his sleeve. His indifferent gaze passed over me to the man standing behind me, who was holding my prenatal checkup report. "I don't know her," Peter said coldly. He wrapped an arm around his fiancée and walked right past me. Later, my scooter scraped his luxury car on the street. He looked at my pregnant belly with utter disgust. "Where's your husband? Have him call me about the damages." I clutched my bleeding wrist, completely at a loss. I wasn't even married. What husband? My vision had been getting worse and worse since the pregnancy began. I was walking down the sidewalk when a scooter coming toward me knocked me right over. The man, seeing I was pregnant, was terrified. Even though I told him I was fine, he insisted on taking me to the hospital for a checkup. He was a really nice guy. At the hospital, he handled the registration, blood tests, and exams, running around busily until his forehead was beaded with sweat. Even the pregnant woman next to me joked about it. "Your husband is so good to you." I quickly clarified, "He's not my husband. He just accidentally bumped into me and brought me in for a checkup." "Where's the baby's father, then?" the woman asked, a little confused. At a time like this, you really need your husband around. It would be a real problem if something serious happened. At the mention of the baby's father, my heart sank. Peter. I hadn't seen him at all since we broke up. We were from 2 different worlds to begin with. Now we were back where we belonged, which was for the best. But sometimes, the world is just too small. I had just gotten my test results and turned around. And came face to face with Peter. My vision had been fluctuating, but in that moment, it was perfectly clear. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit that made him look even taller and leaner. He was a bit thinner, but his handsome features were the same. The woman on his arm was beautiful, with a gentle and refined air. She was impeccably dressed, from her designer dress down to every last strand of her hair. Meanwhile, my baggy maternity dress was stained. My hair was a mess from the fall. I'd seen news reports online about his engagement and alliance with her family. I knew she was Isabel, the daughter of the Smith Corporation's chairman. We were worlds apart from the very beginning. Following Peter's gaze, Isabel noticed me. She looked me up and down, her brows slightly furrowed. She tugged on Peter's sleeve, her voice soft. "Peter, who's this? Is she someone you know?" I was frozen to the spot, my legs feeling like they were filled with lead. I wanted to open my mouth and greet them casually. To compliment them on what a perfect couple they made. But my throat was so tight with unshed tears that I couldn't make a sound. Peter was also silent. His gaze shifted indifferently to the man behind me. The man who'd knocked me over was currently holding my various reports, trying to add up the costs. I was so mortified I wanted to run and hide. I was terrified he would say something to humiliate me. But Peter just replied in a quiet voice. "I don't know her." Then he put his arm around Isabel's waist and brushed past me. Like a total stranger. No one would have ever guessed. That Peter and I once had a love that burned so bright. We were classmates in high school, we even shared a desk. Peter came from a good family and was incredibly handsome. A lot of girls at school had crushes on him. There were endless love letters and confessions. Peter was sick of it. He hired me to be his fake girlfriend to ward off other girls. The pay was great, and I really needed the money. So, Peter and I hit it off immediately. All I had to do was pretend to go on dates with him after school. He loved the dessert shop near our school. He'd always order 2 small cakes. Just for show. He never ate his, he always gave it to me. He'd just sit beside me and read. Thanks to him, I got a full meal every night. And I had a quiet place to study and do my homework. Our arrangement worked out perfectly. He got some peace and quiet, and I earned enough to pay for my college tuition. Perhaps it was a coincidence. We both ended up at the same university. We were in different majors, but our academic buildings weren't far apart. He was still incredibly popular with the girls. And I had a few admirers of my own. When Peter proposed we continue our arrangement, I refused. Because I wanted to experience what a real relationship felt like. I knew my situation. Once I graduated, romance wouldn't be so pure. Your family background, your job, your income, all of it would be part of the equation. When Peter found out why, he still managed to persuade me. He said he could give me the feeling of being in a relationship and I could still get paid. It really was the best of both worlds. So, we struck a deal again. Peter and I started dating like any other college couple. We held hands, went out to eat, and watched movies. At first, it didn't feel like a real relationship. It felt just like when we were pretending in high school. Until Christmas of our sophomore year. My dorm and Peter's dorm held a mixer. We played Truth or Dare. Peter drew a dare, a passionate kiss with a girl in the room. Since everyone thought we were a couple, they all started cheering for us. As Peter leaned in, he whispered in my ear. "Is this okay? If you're not comfortable, I can just take the penalty." His warm breath tickled my ear. A tingling warmth spread through me. Clutching the hem of my shirt, I nervously nodded. The moment his soft lips met mine, my heart skipped a beat. The cheers around us faded in and out. Peter cupped the back of my head, gently pulling me closer. His tongue lightly parted my lips. The air around us grew hot, and my heart began to race. The kiss was deeper and longer than I ever could have imagined. And my relationship with him. It seemed to change from that moment on. The wall between us, the one called boundaries, disappeared. Peter started kissing me whenever he wanted. While we were talking, while I was reading, while we were walking hand in hand. Even if we hadn't seen each other for a few classes. He would pull me into an empty corner. And kiss me from my forehead to the tip of my nose, and finally my lips. I'd push him away, breathless. "Peter, are we?" Every time I'd snap out of the daze and try to define our relationship. He'd derail me with another powerful kiss. He'd kiss me and confess his feelings in a muffled voice. Peter said he'd wanted to kiss me for a long time. From the very first time he saw me. He had held back for 4 long years. He wanted to confess in high school, but I had a don't even think about it vibe. He was afraid that if he failed, he'd lose his chance completely. So he used the fake relationship as a cover. He planned to seriously confess in college, but I acted like I wanted nothing to do with him. Even though we'd spent 3 years together in high school, I acted cold and distant. Like we barely knew each other. So Peter backed off again. He was afraid that if he failed, we couldn't even be friends. But how could I not like him? He was so brilliant, so unattainable. I just never dared to imagine that someone or something so perfect could ever belong to me. Once we were sure of each other's feelings, Peter and I fell headfirst into a passionate romance. No more careful touches, no more testing the waters. We gave each other all of ourselves, completely. After graduation, Peter started an internship at his family's company. I found a job not far from him. Peter's parents found out about our relationship. He was their only son. His family status and mine were worlds apart. I wasn't good enough for them, so he was willing to give up everything and defy his family for me. His father deliberately suppressed him. When Peter left the family company, he couldn't even find a decent job. I was fired from one company after another. Even so, he refused to give in. The once pampered boy started delivering food in the freezing cold and scorching heat. Those days were hard, but they were also happy. For the first time, I think I finally felt the warmth of a home. No arguments or yelling, no cold stove. Peter went out to work every day, and I stayed home to clean and cook. Even if it was just a bowl of noodles, I made sure it was steaming hot when I handed it to him. At night, we'd cuddle in bed, talking and being close. It felt like as long as we held each other, we could overcome any difficulty. Unfortunately, that happiness didn't last long. As the days went by, I could see the starry light in Peter's eyes, slowly dimming, replaced by exhaustion. When we lay in bed holding hands and talking, he would often fall into a deep sleep after just a few words. I'd stroke his palm. The hands that were once softer than a woman's were now covered in thick calluses. So when Peter's mother showed up at our rental apartment, I didn't listen to Peter and hide. In our humble home, I found some tea leaf fragments and brewed her a cup. They were the cheap tea leaves Peter used to stay awake. Peter's mother showed no sign of disgust. She took the tea and said a warm, gentle thank you. Although she was a wealthy woman, she wasn't the arrogant stereotype from TV dramas. Instead, she was graceful and dignified, and her words were soft and persuasive. She said, "Gina, you're a good girl. This tiny room. You've kept it so clean and cozy. I can see that you and Peter are truly in love. If it were up to me, I would absolutely let you be together." She paused, sighing softly. Although Peter is my only son, his father has who knows how many illegitimate children out there. The moment his father gives up on him, he will truly fall from being a golden boy to being mud that anyone can step on. As a mother, I've seen Peter's love for you. But what about you, Gina? Do you really love him? His mother's words filled me with shame. They made me realize how selfish I had been. The February weather was still chilly. Sitting in an unheated room wearing a thick coat, I was still sweating. I had thought love could conquer all. But I discovered that my love was just dragging a bright moon down into the mud. I decided to let go. To return the moon to the night sky. I moved out, blocked him on everything, and went into hiding. But Peter still found me. He asked me with red-rimmed eyes why I had given up. I shot back, "Without the Shaw family, what can you give me if I'm with you? A rich life? A promising future?" I looked at him, stunned into silence, my tone flat. "Peter, I don't want to pretend anymore. I thought if I could get you, I could change my destiny, climb the social ladder. I never thought it would be this hard. Peter, let me go. I want to find a man with a better background than mine and get married while I'm still young and have my looks. Have kids early, live a good life." I watched the light in Peter's eyes slowly fade. He spoke, his voice hoarse. "You were with me for the Shaw family's money?" I sneered, "What else? If you didn't have money, we never would have even started. You know that better than anyone, don't you? Only rich people can afford to be romantics. For someone from my background, just surviving takes everything I have. How could you ever expect me to have a sincere heart?" Even though I had said the most humiliating things possible. Peter still approached me, humbled, his large hand gripping my wrist. "Gina, just give me a little more time. Even without the Shaw family's money, I can give you a good life." I resisted the urge to look at his hurt and dejected expression. I shook off his hand and continued to mock him. "I don't want to wait anymore. When there's no money, even love feels pathetic. When you hold me, all I can smell is sweat. In that rental with paper-thin walls, I'm too embarrassed to even make a sound. Peter, how about this? You go back to being your family's golden boy. Accept the arranged marriage with a woman from a family that matches yours. If you really like me that much, I can be your mistress. You'd have money and love. Isn't that better?" In that instant, all the color drained from Peter's face. "Gina, you make me sick." He trembled as he pulled the plain silver band from his finger and threw it on the ground. "I hope you find the life you're looking for." As Peter's car drove away, I sank to the ground. I picked up the silver ring, now covered in dirt, and whispered through my tears, "And I wish you a brilliant future, too." I found out I was pregnant about 2 weeks after we broke up. My period had always been irregular, but not having it for 2 months was definitely unusual. A trip to the hospital confirmed I was 7 weeks pregnant. I couldn't bring myself to terminate the pregnancy. It wasn't just because of Peter. I have plenty of relatives in this world. But no one who truly loves me. There are many kinds of love in this world. But only a child's love for their parent is the most selfless and pure. It's an instinct that doesn't keep score. For that selfish reason, I kept the baby. In the early stages of my pregnancy, I could move around easily, and there were plenty of simple part-time jobs I could do. I don't have many material desires, so while taking care of myself, I could also save some money. Around the 4th month, my vision suddenly declined. Sometimes my sight would be so blurry that I couldn't even move around freely. The doctor said it was due to pregnancy hormones and that it might get worse. It might return to normal after giving birth, or it might not, requiring surgery. So I wanted to save as much money as possible before the delivery. After leaving the hospital, the man who had bumped into me slipped me $1,000 before he left. He said, "You're so young, pregnant, and with no one to look after you. It's pitiful. You should be more careful when you walk from now on." I thanked him and took the money. When you're in a tough spot, you can't afford to let pride get in the way of money. After that day, life went on as usual. When my vision was good, I'd go out and do part-time work. When it was bad, I'd take on some writing jobs from home. Maybe our story wasn't over yet. Within just 10 days, Peter and I met again. My scooter scraped his Maybach. I was making a right turn on my scooter when my vision suddenly gave out. This time, I could barely see anything. I fell, scooter and all. From the sound of it, the scooter's handlebar had scraped the car door. Luckily, I braced myself with my hands as I fell. My stomach was fine, but my wrist was scraped and stinging badly. I knew the injury wasn't minor. Warm liquid was steadily seeping out. I didn't know I had hit Peter's car. I didn't have time to deal with my wound, so I just gripped it tightly with my other hand. I didn't even know where he was, just bowing and apologizing repeatedly in the direction of a blurry figure. Until Peter spoke, "Where's your husband?" Hearing his voice, I froze, my whole body stiff. I never imagined that every time I saw Peter after our breakup, I'd be in a more pathetic state than the last. My husband? I figured he thought the man who knocked me over the other day was my husband. That was fine. Better to just let the mistake stand. He's busy, at work. Peter laughed, a sound laced with fury. After 3 years together, I knew this was a prelude to him losing his temper. Work? He's working that hard? And he still can't make enough money? He lets you go out and hand out flyers while you're pregnant? The flyers in my scooter basket must have scattered, and Peter must have seen them. Call him now. Tell him to get over here and talk to me about the damages. He was right. Back in our little rental, when times were tough, Peter never wanted me to work. He said he could earn money, that he could support me. He was incredibly smart and a hard worker. Even delivering food, he managed to make more than others. He'd spend time studying routes and could quickly memorize complex maps. He delivered orders faster and more efficiently than anyone else. The moment he earned any money, he'd transfer it to me. The sappy thing he said most often in his texts was, "Gina, buy whatever you want. Buy more good food, gain some weight. You're too thin, it's bony when I hold you. Don't save money for your husband." Thinking of the past made my eyes burn, and I was terrified I'd start crying in front of him. I quickly fumbled for my phone. "How much will the repairs cost?" "I'll pay for it. Let's settle this privately. I'm in a hurry." I heard Peter scoff. A sound mixed with resignation and maybe a little contempt. "Is this the life you wanted?" I clutched my phone, my cheeks burning, not knowing how to respond. Suddenly, my vision cleared, and I saw Peter's gaze fall on my pregnant belly. The disgust in his eyes was impossible to hide. Fortunately, Isabel got out of the passenger seat and walked over. She linked her arm through Peter's affectionately. "Peter, what's gotten into you today?" Isabel's tone was gentle, with a hint of a pout. "Her life is already hard enough. Why are you being so petty? It's just a small scratch. It won't cost much to fix. Why don't we just let it go? With his fiancée's gentle persuasion, Peter's expression finally softened. He gave a slight nod and pulled his arm away. Seemingly unwilling to get entangled with me any further, Peter turned and got back in the car. Isabel smiled at me, her eyes lighting up. It's you. I think we met at the hospital. You're pregnant, you should be resting at home. Making money isn't that urgent right now. Her voice was beautiful, like a clear spring flowing through my heart. She was beautiful and kind, even remembering to help me pick up my scooter. Be careful on your scooter, okay? If not for yourself, then for the baby in your belly. I let go of my wrist to steady the scooter, and the cut started bleeding again. Droplets splattered on the ground like little red flowers. Isabel cried out. Oh, your cut is still bleeding. She turned back to Peter. Peter, maybe we should take her to the hospital? Peter looked over, his eyes fixed on my wound. I quickly tried to cover it. It's fine, just a small cut. I'll just bandage it up when I get home. Peter looked away and said coolly to Isabel. Get in the car. Isabel turned back to me, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. I'm sorry, my fiancé is a bit of a germaphobe. She got back in the car, her hair trailing a light, pleasant fragrance as she moved. Honestly, I was happy for Peter. A man as wonderful as him deserved an equally wonderful woman. But Peter's car didn't start. He leaned over slightly, looking past Isabel at me. Get in. I was surprised, and Isabel also looked at Peter with a startled expression. I quickly waved my hands. No, it's okay, I can. Peter cut me off impatiently. Let's get you checked out at the hospital, to avoid any disputes later. So that's what he was worried about. Don't worry. I'm already grateful you're not making me pay for the damages. I wouldn't try to scam you. After saying that, I gave them a small bow. Then I got on my scooter and fled as if my life depended on it. That night, when I got home, I was cleaning and bandaging my wrist. When there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and the strong smell of alcohol hit me. Peter was standing right outside. He stood tall and straight, having regained his former radiance. He looked so dazzlingly out of place in the run-down apartment building. I was a bit stunned and asked him, "What are you doing here?" His eyes were dark, his voice cold. I'm not here for you. I'm here to see your husband. Before I could even nod, Peter slipped past me into the apartment. He scanned the surroundings, his handsome brow furrowing. Where is he? I looked down, my voice soft. He's working late. Call him. Tell him to come back. Peter sat down on the sofa, his chest rising and falling as he tried to contain his emotions. Of course, I didn't have a husband to play along with me. And I certainly didn't want to catch up with Peter when I was at such a low point. I clenched my fists. Why are you looking for him? If it's about the money for the car repairs, I can transfer it to you right now. If not, you can leave. We used to be a couple. But now you have a fiancé, and I have a husband. We are not in a position to sit down and have a calm, friendly chat. I pulled the door open and gestured for him to leave. Peter stood up, strode toward me, and slammed the door shut. What am I doing here? You're really protective of him, aren't you? I came to ask your wonderful husband. To ask him if he's a fucking man. Letting his pregnant wife go out and work. He angrily loosened his collar and paced back and forth, hands on his hips, trying to cool his temper. Gina, didn't you want to use your looks to marry someone well off? Is this the man you found? How long have we been broken up? And you're already pregnant with his child? Would it kill you to be without a man for a minute? Peter's words knocked the wind out of me. My mind went blank, and a stinging sensation filled my nose. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. His head snapped to the side. My hand hung in the air. I never thought I would hit the only person who had ever truly cherished me. And I never thought he would say such vicious things to me. When Peter looked at me again, his eyes were full of regret and self-blame. "I'm sorry, Gina. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He pulled me into his arms wrapping tightly around my shoulders. I couldn't break free. I could only let him bury his face in my neck and whisper apologies over and over. Peter fell asleep in my arms. It took a great deal of effort to get him onto the bed. I sat on the edge, watching him sleep. He had lost weight. He was even thinner than he was 5 months ago. His jawline was sharper, and his eyes held a coldness they didn't have before. I still preferred the old Peter, because I knew all too well that the Peter in front of me now didn't belong to me. His phone rang again and again. It was Isabel calling every time. I couldn't answer it. And I couldn't let Peter stay the night. The decision I had made with such difficulty. The separate, peaceful lives we had finally found. After much hesitation, I called Peter's mother. She quickly came with people to take Peter away. Before she left, her gaze lingered on my pregnant belly. I've always been on the thin side, so my baby bump was smaller than others at the same stage. She might not have been able to tell how far along I was just by looking. After a long moment, she just made some small talk with me. "Have you been doing okay lately? If you need money, you can ask me. Don't go to Peter." I replied, "Don't worry, I won't contact him." His mother nodded, then asked, "How did Peter fall asleep? He must have had a lot to drink before he came here. He didn't do anything else, did he?" His mother's eyes were filled with suspicion. I felt offended and instinctively placed a hand on my belly. "I'm pregnant." His mother waved her hand. "Don't get me wrong. Peter. She paused for a moment. "He hasn't been sleeping well lately. I was just asking." His mother patted my shoulder, her tone polite yet distant. "You did the right thing. But if there's a next time, I suggest you don't open the door for Peter. That Smith girl, Isabel. She's not very big-hearted and tends to be suspicious. She doesn't have a forgiving nature." After she finished, her gaze fell on my belly again. "Take good care of yourself." After Peter's mother left that night, I dreamed of Peter again. The only difference was that it wasn't just the two of us in the dream anymore. Isabel was there, too. As Peter and I were playfully fooling around in that little rental apartment, Isabel pushed the door open. She was crying her eyes out, asking Peter why he would betray her. She accused me of interfering in her relationship with Peter. Called me a cheap homewrecker. I woke up from the dream drenched in a cold sweat. Homewrecker, the other woman, those humiliating labels were a constant in my childhood. My mother was the other woman. She always complained that fate had given her a beautiful face, but not a good family background. So, not long after I was born, she had an affair with a small business owner. When his wife came to our door, I was only 3 years old. I cried my heart out watching the wife tear at my mother's clothes and hair, spitting on her, calling her a homewrecker, a vixen. My father found out about her shameful affair, but he couldn't bring himself to divorce her. He was addicted to her beauty, but also disgusted that she had cheated on him. His insults were worse than anyone else's. Slut, whore, I heard those words almost every day. They were entangled in their own love-hate drama. And for me, their daughter, they felt neither guilt nor love. Perhaps because of my unusual family background, I've always been emotionally stable. I'm indifferent to most things and can't seem to get interested in anything. Only Peter's appearance caused a ripple in my calm, uneventful life. He was different from all the other boys in our class. He never looked me up and down, eyeing my early developing body. Nor did he sidle up to me with a smirk and ask if my mom was a mistress. He always smelled fresh and pleasant. When our eyes met, he would have a faint smile on his face, neither invasive nor distant. Leaning against the headboard for a long time, I thought, I should move. My lease wasn't up, so I probably wouldn't get my security deposit back. The landlady was a bit disappointed. She tried to persuade me to stay. I've taken a real liking to you. And you keep the place so neat and clean. How about this? I'll lower your rent a little, and you can stay. I thought about it but still refused. I knew Peter. Now that he knew where I lived, he would be back. I didn't want him to know I was still single. And I definitely didn't want him to know that the baby I was carrying was his. Otherwise, history would just repeat itself. A few days later, I had most of my things packed. Isabel showed up at my door. She was wearing a moon-white long dress, her long hair in soft curls. She still spoke in a gentle and polite manner. "Miss Gina, may I have a word with you?" The door closed, leaving just the two of us in the small room. She saw the bags and boxes on the floor and looked at me with a smile. "Miss Gina, are you planning on moving?" I nodded. She let out a small scoff. "You should know. If Peter wants to find you, he can find you no matter where you move. If you really want to make him give up, then get married." I looked up in shock as she walked over to the sofa and sat down on her own. She handed me a file folder. "This is Mark's information." "Oh, that's the man who knocked you over the other day. Take a look. His situation is quite good. For you." Isabel paused, then softly uttered a few words. "More than enough." The corners of her eyes lifted as she smiled at me. It was the same gentle smile, but she looked like a completely different person from when she was with Peter. Seeing that I wasn't opening the folder, she continued. "Mr. Hayes is 30 years old, divorced, no children. He's a local with a house and a car. Oh, and he's infertile, so he won't mind that you have a child." I couldn't listen anymore and threw the folder back at her. "Miss Smith, what are you so afraid of? We're not even from the same world. Are you that insecure? Do you really think a pregnant woman like me could steal Peter from you?" The smile froze on Isabel's lips. She seemed to have no intention of arguing with me further and simply took out a card and slapped it on the coffee table. $1 million. If I'm not mistaken, Miss Gina, you're in desperate need of money. You don't want Peter to have another falling out with his family over you. So take the money and do what you're supposed to do. Isabel was right. I really did need the money. If this were 5 months ago, I would have proudly thrown the card back in her face. But now, I looked down at my growing belly. I wasn't afraid of hardship. But my child couldn't suffer along with me. I took a deep breath and extended my hand to Isabel. 5 million. I have no intention of getting married. But I will cooperate with you in this little act. Afterward, I will leave this city. And you won't have to worry about me ever again." Isabel raised an eyebrow, her eyes filled with disdain. "You certainly know how to drive a hard bargain." She stood up and brushed off her dress as if it were contaminated. "I'll have the money transferred to you tonight. You and Mr. Hayes had better work on your relationship. Don't let Peter see through the act." After Isabel left, the rest of the money was transferred to my account that night as promised. Take the money, solve the problem. After much thought, I proactively added Mark on WhatsApp. Isabel must have already paid him off. So he knew what he had to do even better than I did. We met a few times and exchanged some basic information. Mark was of average build with regular features. He had a very decent look and air about him. In a suit, he looked sharp and capable. I had once told Peter my criteria for a partner. A local with a harmonious family. Good character and decent looks were enough. It seemed to match Mark quite well. That was probably why Peter had mistaken him for my husband. A few days later, Mark and I went to Peter's company. After we explained our purpose, the receptionist made a call. A secretary led us to a meeting room. Peter was very busy now. We waited for over half an hour before he showed up. Mark nervously stood up. Peter was on a call and just waved for him to sit down. He hung up the phone and sat on the sofa across from us, crossing his long legs. "What is it?" Peter glanced at me, his expression flat, showing no emotion. "Mr. Shaw, I'm very sorry to bother you." Mark nodded at Peter and placed a neat stack of bills on the coffee table. He recited his lines as planned. "I heard from my wife. That's when I found out she accidentally scraped." Peter's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. He didn't have the patience to listen to Mark finish. He waved his hand to interrupt. "My assistant will contact you about the car repairs. If there's nothing else, you can leave." Peter didn't look at us again and stood up to walk toward the door. His attitude was so cold that I felt hiring Mark to act was a bit redundant. But Mark insisted on finishing the performance. "My wife told me you used to be together. Mr. Shaw, we're very happy now. We may not be wealthy, but Gina and I are very content. So, Mr. Shaw, I hope you won't disturb our lives anymore." Peter stopped in his tracks and turned to look at us. His face was calm, serene. He said, "I admit, I had some unresolved feelings. But now that I see Gina has the life she wanted, I wish her all the best." He looked at me and gave a slight nod and a small smile. A smile that held the kind of peace that comes after weathering a great storm. It was as if his drunken outburst that night had just been a dream. A weight lifted from my chest, but my heart plummeted at the same time. After Peter left, Mark was a bit puzzled. "Mr. Shaw seems very rational. Did Miss Smith really need to go to such lengths?" I took a breath and found my voice. "It's a high society marriage. It's normal to be cautious. I'll still have to trouble you to finish the act and take me home." Mark chuckled and nodded. "Of course. In for a penny, in for a pound." Leaving the meeting room, I told Mark to wait for me downstairs. I went to the restroom myself. The further along in my pregnancy, the more frequently I needed to go. After I was done, my vision blurred again. I think I was starting to figure out a pattern. My vision was affected not only by pregnancy hormones but also by my emotional state. Fortunately, I was slowly getting used to it and was no longer as panicked as before. I followed the wall, feeling my way out of the restroom. I heard footsteps approaching. I held out my hand and spoke up to ask for help. "Hello, my vision isn't very good. Could you please help me get downstairs?" As the blurry figure drew closer, a familiar scent enveloped me. I froze, not knowing what to do. I felt like fate was playing a cruel joke on me, making my last encounter with Peter just as pathetic as the others. "What's wrong with your eyes?" Peter asked, his voice trembling slightly. I tried my best to suppress my emotions and keep my voice steady. "It's the pregnancy hormones. My vision comes and goes. It should get better after I give birth. It's okay, I can get down on my own." I was about to pull my hand back, but Peter's large hand held it firmly. "I'll take you." Peter said nothing more. He held my hand, his pace deliberately slow. The familiar warmth flowed between us, and all my senses were amplified. His breath, so close, and his equally rapid heartbeat. It felt as if we both understood that this would be the last path we would ever walk together. So, by a silent, mutual agreement, neither of us spoke again. He walked me downstairs. To Mark's side. He didn't let go immediately. He squeezed my hand tightly and said his goodbye. "Gina, live a good life. Take good care of yourself." I nodded, and before the tears could well up, I pulled my hand away. Life returned to a state of calm. No one bothered me anymore. I had traded a love that was carved into my soul for a life free of worry. It seemed like a fair deal. Though in the dead of night, I would still think of Peter. I'd think of those happy days in our little rental apartment. But life has to go on. The past will eventually become the past. I bought a plane ticket and, as promised, left the city. I had no intention of coming back. Before I left, I went to see my parents. They were the same as when they were young. They couldn't exchange 2 sentences without arguing, screaming, fighting, and then making up. It was as if nothing in the world mattered except their own drama. It was fine. They didn't love me, but they didn't control me either. What I made of my life was entirely up to me. Even when they saw me return, pregnant, they didn't seem to care much. My mom dropped a hint. "Gina, I gave you good looks, but not for you to waste. It doesn't matter whose baby it is. But you have to find a rich husband, you know." My dad scoffed. "Don't listen to your mother's nonsense. The most important thing for a woman is to be decent and know her place. It's okay to be poor, but you have to have your dignity. Don't be like your mother, using her looks to destroy other people's families and become a slut." They started fighting again, and all the bad memories came flooding back. My stomach tightened in knots. They didn't even notice when I left. I dragged my suitcase to the airport alone. I looked down at my swollen belly. At least in 5 more months, I wouldn't be alone anymore. I would give my child so much love. Enough to make up for the love I never had. Before I boarded the plane, Peter's mother intercepted me with her people. She said that Peter and Isabel were getting married soon. At such a critical juncture, she didn't want any mishaps. She already knew the baby I was carrying was Peter's. So it was even more important that Peter not find out. She wanted to send me abroad and said I could return after everything had settled down. She also promised me a generous compensation, ensuring that my child and I would be financially secure for the rest of our lives. Of course, if I liked living abroad, she could also help me immigrate. I had no reason to refuse. After all, I was alone. It didn't matter where I went. Peter's mother sent me to London to wait for the birth. She handled all the arrangements herself. Perhaps out of concern for the baby, she not only set me up in a nice place but also hired a Chinese nanny to take care of me. The nanny was efficient and didn't talk much. She never asked about my situation. She seemed to understand my role and even comforted me, saying that many wealthy men in China set things up this way. She told me not to feel too guilty and to just enjoy life. I chuckled wryly but didn't bother to explain or argue. Life here was relaxed and comfortable, a world away from my previous struggles. But the weather was always gloomy, suffocatingly so. I still preferred my home country. I planned to find a small city with a slower pace of life after Peter and Isabel got married and raise my child there. I often followed the news from home, but by the time I went into labor, I still hadn't seen any news of Peter's wedding. Lying on the delivery bed, as the contractions hit, my vision blurred in and out. The midwife held my hand, encouraging me in English. I think the pain was making me hallucinate. In a daze, the midwife beside me transformed into Peter. He leaned down, his eyes filled with tenderness as he looked at me. He said, "Gina, stay strong. We're about to have our baby." As the baby's loud cries filled the delivery room, my vision went completely dark. When I came to, Peter was gone. I knew it had been a hallucination. The midwife placed a tiny bundle in my arms. "I'm so happy for you." A wrinkled, pink little thing, not pretty at all, but my eyes welled up with tears. This was my and Peter's child. I had a girl. I named her Annie. There was no deep meaning behind it, I just hoped she would have a smooth and healthy life. The nanny took great care of me during my recovery. My vision finally returned to normal. Everything was heading in a better direction. On the afternoon of my daughter's 100-day celebration, I was holding her and sunbathing in the backyard. Peter suddenly appeared before me. Just like in my hallucination, his eyes were full of warmth, and he smiled as he looked at me. He reached out and hugged me. He said, "Let me hold our daughter." Before I could react, he skillfully and naturally took Annie from my arms. Peter looked down at the pink, well-behaved baby in his arms, a smile playing on his lips. "Annie has my eyes. But she has your mouth, so small." I stood to the side, a lump in my throat, my emotions churning. But I couldn't help but ask. "How did you know I was here?" And your fiancée? Isabel? Peter frowned and handed Annie to the nanny. He pulled me into his arms and bit my lip playfully. Do you really have to spoil the mood right now? I accomplished what I needed to. So my collaboration with her naturally ended. Collaboration? What collaboration? I asked, confused. Peter raised an eyebrow. Just like your collaboration with Mark. He suddenly remembered something and grumbled. But that kid went a little too far, calling you wife over and over. I haven't even called you that yet. I learned from Peter that his engagement to Isabel was a mutually beneficial business arrangement from the very beginning. Peter needed his father to let his guard down so he could promote his own people within the company and prepare to take control. And what Isabel wanted was simple: 2% of the company's shares after Peter became the controlling shareholder. It was supposed to be a win-win, but Isabel got greedy. But that was also what made Peter suspicious. He had her investigated and saw everything she had done. Then he secretly arranged for his mother to send me abroad so he could focus on dealing with the company's old guard and his father's illegitimate children. Now that he had full control of the company, Peter had nothing left to hide. His life, his marriage, he could finally make his own decisions. I asked him, if you hadn't run into me at the hospital, if that car accident hadn't happened, would we have just missed each other forever? Peter denied it. He told me very seriously that even on the day we broke up, even though he had believed my hurtful words, in his heart, he had never given up on our relationship. He was even certain that I would never love anyone but him. He wanted to become powerful as quickly as possible and then come find me. But he never expected that when we met again, I would already be pregnant. And the man behind me fit the description of the partner I had described to him countless times. That's why he lost his composure and said things he didn't mean. It was only after he got drunk that he mustered the courage to knock on my door. And it was from that night that he began to suspect my husband and marriage might be fake. Fortunately, fate was on our side. We didn't miss our chance. Peter and I returned to the country with Annie. We didn't have a wedding, we just got our marriage license. But I knew the security he gave me was far more reliable than any grand ceremony. Peter's mother adored Annie, saying she made up for the regret of not having a daughter. As for Peter's father, I never met him. I only heard from Peter that after retiring, he moved to Florida to enjoy his golden years. Isabel, on the other hand, I occasionally ran into at parties. She married a man from a family of equal standing. She was still as polished and beautiful as ever, but there was always a hint of weariness in her eyes. Her husband was always surrounded by young, ambitious women. And she constantly had to spend her energy and money to get rid of them. When Peter found out that she had used the same tactics on me, he was annoyed, calling her vicious. I patted his arm to calm him down. How was that vicious? It was $5 million. She was a total saint. Peter grumbled, tackling me onto the bed. Am I only worth $5 million to you? How about $100 million? Want it? You're taking it whether you want it or not.